I'd like to call to order the April 23rd, 2026 Planning Board meeting. Welcome, everyone. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that the land upon which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Epequit, Prince Edward Island, Mi'kma'ki is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this island for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. Before we begin, I'd like to highlight the purpose of our planning board meetings and its role. We strive to uphold the values of Three Rivers: community, innovation, and inclusivity. We have a special town, and Planning Board is committed to contributing to sustainable growth and development. Planning Board meetings are essential to our governance process, providing transparency, advice, and assistance in respect of planning matters affecting the town of Three Rivers. Residents are encouraged to attend and participate, ensuring everyone can be part of the governance process. We value your input and aim to maintain a respectful and professional environment. Personal attacks and disruptions won't be tolerated. Let's make these meetings a reflection of our pride in Three Rivers. Also, please note that the meeting is being officially recorded by the town of Three Rivers. Unauthorized recordings, photographing, or broadcasting of these proceedings is not permitted without the consent of the council or CAO. And thank you for your respect and your participation. So, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Moved by Louis, second? Cameron? Okay. Any additions to the agenda, or are we good to go? All in favor? Okay. Do we have any conflict of interest on the item on the agenda tonight? Items? Okay, hearing none. We'll move ahead. All right, can we have a motion for the adoption of the March 26th Planning Board minutes, please? Moved by Cameron, second? Second. Yvette? Thanks. Oh, okay, don't all fail. All right, any errors or omissions noted? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes? Okay. So we'll move on to business arising from minutes. Just like to note that council recommended or approved the 120-day permits, not with our recommendation adjustment, but with the original motions. And so those went to council and they have been approved. I don't have anything else from the minutes. Does anybody have anything?
I do, if you don't mind.
Yep,
So I'll speak on the same topic. And I missed the last planning meeting, so I apologize for that. I might have maybe questioned more when you guys did that. And I guess maybe I'll ask first the understanding of why you guys decided to add that wording. And I asked because I don't think it was council didn't feel that it was ours to review that. Like, I don't know what process we would have enacted to, if they wanted to extend it, how would we review it? Is kind of where we were. So to us, if they were looking to renew it past 100 days, they would just essentially submit another permit and go through the same process. Where we were unsure what would their process be to ask us to review it. And, you know, because you guys are the planning board, to us, the steps are clear. To us, in the future, these type of planning wouldn't even come to council anymore, hopefully. But I don't know if you just have any comments on that, but that's why we refused and went back to the normal wording that we go with.
Derek.
I'd like to address that, since I was the one that suggested the amendment to the motion. The reason why I did that is because I was following the bylaws having to do with the placement of recreational vehicles in Three Rivers, section 527. And it says this in section 2, that a permit issued in accordance with the provision of section 1 shall be valid for a period of not more than 120 days, but may be renewed by council. So in the bylaw, it would be council's responsibility to extend the permit beyond the 120 days. How that happens is that would be a good question, but I wanted to put that in there to make sure that we were giving the residents of Three Rivers the benefit of the bylaws, because we'd like to hold them to the bylaws, Madam Chair, at all times. And I think we need to make sure that they can use the provisions in the bylaw as they've been approved.
Yeah, so for me, I see what you're saying, and the process again would be them, still would be approved to us, because it's gonna have to come back through us, but I think that they got to follow the same avenue, back through the planning board to council.
That would be an administrative detail, but the bylaw just says it can be renewed by council. How that renewal happens would be a administrative process.
Okay, I'd just like to ask Danielle to respond to that, please.
I'll give you just some background, Derek, as to what I had sent to council in regards to why we wouldn't write that specifically in as a condition. So I'll just kind of review the email that I had sent. And so to give an explanation as to why we would not add the wording but may be renewed by council, it weakens the temporary nature of the approval. From a planning and enforcement perspective, the cleanest message is this approval ends at 120 days. That is the intent of that type of permit. In the bylaw, it does state, you're right, that it can be renewed by council, but it would never be put in as a condition. A condition would be something that we would add as a must, you know what I mean, as something that would happen, whereas the intention of those 120-day approvals for a temporary trailer or recreational trailer, the intention is for it to be temporary, and that's why that was not added in the original conditions.
We good?
I think the bylaws is a learning experience as we go. I don't know if anybody's asked for an extension beyond the 120 days. But if somebody has or will, I think they're within the bylaws to ask for that, according to the way it's there. If that can't be written into each application for the 120-day permit, then that's okay, as long as people understand that they could apply for an extension beyond the 120 days.
Okay. Are we good, Cody? Okay. All right. We'll move on to presentations and delegations. We have two people this evening, and Janice Macbeth, you're up first.
Might say some of my speech if it's the developer that is also speaking. Might save you some time.
Sorry?
It's the developer that's speaking to the development. If I speak second, I might be able to cut out some of my questions.
That's okay. We'll hear from you first. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janice Macbeth. And just to Derek's point about the wording in the bylaw and council making that decision, that was the premise that I was trying to explain in a worded fashion at the last planning board meeting about how it's council's decision to bypass having 10% of a subdivision lot be bypassed. That's council's decision, not the planners and not the planning boards. It's council's decision. So I'm kind of with him on the bylaws. Maybe that's a sticky point, but I guess we're all learning. Tonight I'm speaking about the proposal for Gall Street and Murphy Lane. So I'm probably having a lot of questions, the same as you folks have after reviewing the proposal. Like the for sale sign just came down on that property. I'm sure it just came down. So I've kind of compiled a few questions and comments. Like, first of all, we don't know who the owner is of the proposal, because when I look at those 3 lots on GeoLink, they're in different names. So we have 3 lots, they're not consolidated, and they're in a couple of different owners' names. So I'm not sure why we're at this stage of the permit, but I'm leaving that as a question for planning board. My next question is, The document reads on one page that there's going to be 16 one-bedroom units, and on page 2, it reads that there's going to be 18 one-bedroom units. I'm not sure which it is, if it's
The
16 or
18 is a
18.
typo.
18 is a typo, okay. So then my next question is, who is this building being built for? What demographic of our community is it serving? Because 66% of the units are single bedrooms. And I have been here enough of planning board that I've heard many times that you are looking for 3-bedroom units, not 1-bedroom units. And I also noted that accessibility in parking spaces, especially for accessibility, is being noted. So my question then is, basically, if the developer's here, then he can answer it. Who's the owner, and who's going to be the target market for this building? I looked at the drawings and I noticed that once again there's a retention pond. That is what it's called, retention, not detention. And I'm wondering how the builder will plan to mitigate any standing water. Because it appears in the application, it states, the application states, the wider system of surface water drainage retention. So I read that to mean that the water is going to be staying in the hole that is in the drawing. So there's like a trench, and then there's the big retention pond. And I'm assuming that's going to be because there's no stormwater system to connect to. Now, somebody here can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But right now, in this community of Montague, there are 3 properties with detention or retention ponds with standing water and bulrushes. My next point is that Murphy Lane is just that. It's a lane. It's approximately 30 feet wide. It's a single lane with no exit. I drove down yesterday. I had to back my vehicle up. There's no ditching, there's no lighting, there's no sidewalks, and it's a 30-foot wide lane. It's not a standard size town lane. So we have some issues with this lane as a thoroughfare for the parking spaces. Gull Street itself as well, and there's some Gull Street residents here. It's about 40 feet wide, and it intersects at the entry to the superstore. And we all know that 36 more vehicles using this street as an entry and exit is going to cause a bottleneck at the lights at Superstore, and even trying to turn left on the best day, you cannot turn left on that street. Also, many folks turn right at the Tim Hortons rather than left, and they use Gull Street to go around to return to the lights at Queen and Main. So my question is, how does the town plan for the increased traffic along with the other increased traffic that we're going to get from the 40 unit on Robertson Road that's slated to be built anytime? That's 64 new cars. My next point is, at what point is the existing Montague wastewater plant going to be expanded? The CWCL report from 2022 suggested at the time municipal sewage was above the design perimeters and would be requiring an upgrade based on growth. The Montague wastewater plant, as noted in this document, CBCL, the bridge lift is at negative 28% capacity and 44% capacity at the bridge lift. So we're in the negatives. It also suggests on page 25 of the same report that the section of Gravity Main is already flowing at 88% full under peak conditions with the expansion to Brudenell.
Excuse me, Janice. Do you have many more points? 'Cause
Nope,
you're
I
just
have,
at time.
no, I have a
Okay.
summation. In summary, the town of Three Rivers, I think, has met their 64, with these 64 units, you've met the target for your proposed housing assessment. And I believe that this application is incomplete based on this. The proposal is recommended for approval subject to permit conditions, which include revisions. So we're not seeing what we're getting. A service plan, drainage and erosion controls, access entry permit, landscaping, completion of parcel consolidation, and approved plans. So I would suggest that maybe the planning board is being asked at this point to approve a blank slate, and the blanks are going to be filled in later. And I feel that at this time it should be withdrawn, taken back, reviewed, and completed before it's presented to planning board again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, if they have questions or,
Other than the use of the building, maybe you could elaborate on that.
yeah.
Randy? State your name for the record, please.
Randy Mitchell, resident of Lower Montague, and one of the owners of Anchor Construction Group. I guess I'm the builder, developer on this proposed project. Yeah, that 18 units was definitely a typo. It's 24 units total. We have 3,000 square feet of commercial space in the main floor. We tried to design it to separate the residential parking from the commercial parking. Understanding that that goes down Murphy Lane. I guess to address that question, we're in talks with the province right now about widening that lane down there so it can accept two-way traffic. There was another question you had was, oh yeah, the owner. So CMHA is going to be the proposed owner. That hasn't gone through yet because this process is part of their application for funding. So they require a permit to access any funding. So we're gonna start here, and then ultimately Canadian Mental Health Association is going to own the building. They're moving their programming space that they have on Main Street now. They need a more space for their programming. So they're looking to move from Main Street, and the rest of the apartments are just, because they're a nonprofit, they're just able to rent those as affordable apartment units. In terms of the stormwater, you know, I'm with you. I don't like what we're doing with the stormwater, Janice. It's a regulatory standard by the province. I did get my engineer to write a letter just to kind of summarize what has been done for this property. So I got 3 minutes, I can read it. So this is from Coles Associates. So this is a summary of the stormwater management approach we are proposing for Gall Street. The design intent is to manage stormwater runoff in a manner that minimizes downstream impacts while complying with applicable regulatory standards. This system has been designed in accordance to the Department of Infrastructure and Transportation standards, utilizing a 1 in 100 year return period storm event for sizing and capacity considerations. This ensures that the system is capable of managing extreme rainfall events and provides an appropriate level of service for the development. The proposed system incorporates a combination of stormwater retention ponds and swale drainage ditches. These components are designed to work together to control and store storm runoff generated from the site. The retention pond and associated drainage features have been sized to provide sufficient storage capacity for the designed storm event. Stormwater stored within the system will be dissipated through ground infiltration and evaporation. This approach reduces reliance on direct discharge to municipal systems and supports natural hydrological processes. It should be noted that this system will result in a higher initial construction cost for the development, but is the approach that represents one of the most effective and environmentally responsible solutions for stormwater management. The key benefits of this approach include reduction of peak discharge rates, minimization of downstream erosion and flooding, improvement in water quality through natural filtration, enhanced groundwater recharge, and reduced environmental impacts on surrounding ecosystems. I'm not going to fill 5 minutes here. Do you guys have any questions?
You said you were in contact with somebody about the width of the lane. Where's that up to?
I reached out to our local MLA and also with the, he's not the director of housing, but he's in the housing department.
Okay.
So they're gonna go take a look and see if it's something, a street that they'll upgrade, or if it's something that would be on us to upgrade. But we would make it 20 feet wide to handle two-way traffic.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Randy at this point? Because this is our only point in the meeting where we will have access to ask him questions.
Could you speak a little bit about the garbage bins?
Oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah, so I met with a neighbor. there today, and it's just kind of, we were going through the plans, and he wanted to see if we could relocate the garbage bins from, I guess that would be the southeast part of the property, and move them to the southwest, where it's not as close to residences. We have no problem doing that. And again, I think with all our projects, kind of spoke to Derek about this a little earlier. I was under the understanding the bylaw requires a 6-foot-high opaque enclosure for garbage. Apparently that may not be the case for residential use, but I mean, we've done it on most of our projects so far, so I don't think we're gonna change that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Louis.
So we don't know yet whether the Department of Highways is going to allow you to widen that lane, or,
That's correct, yeah.
so we're still waiting for,
We're waiting to hear on that, yeah.
okay. Thank you.
But you have two entrances to the property, right? One off Gall and one off Murphy Lane.
Correct, yeah.
So,
They have commented on the site distances for both, and they said they're adequate. It's just a matter of kind of who widens it.
I had a question about like the widening of the road. What about the traffic that's gonna leave there and have to go down, like Gall Street and like to the corner? Or is there a chance that that street can be like connected to, say, Ricky Street to have another exit to go to the light? I'm not sure if that's looked into or not.
It takes some expropriating.
Yeah, anyway.
The gentleman, I think, at the bottom of this street, I think he's from BC. Yeah. Yeah. He wouldn't want it, no.
Any other questions for Randy? Okay, we appreciate that, Randy. Oh,
Cameron.
sorry, Cameron?
I think it's just another typo on the designs, but your north face and your south face are backwards.
Yeah, so I went by the page, sorry.
Just an FYI.
I didn't take the compass up here, took everything else.
All right, thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Are we allowed questions from the floor? First time here, don't know. Same question. No? Okay, great. I'll put it on Facebook and I'll ask you.
Can you turn the mic off, please?
Randy, if there's any, who's the client? Randy.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Okay, we have them talking over there. All right. So, yeah, let's save the conversation for later, yeah. Okay, so we're going to move to putting this motion on the floor. Go ahead.
I missed the deadline for being able to present. I only learned about this yesterday, and the deadline was yesterday. But I did make a submission, and I gave it to the town today. I wanted to know, was it circulated to the planning board, and will it be taken into consideration?
Okay, just hold that thought. Sorry, what's your name?
Darlene Scott, 25 Gall Road,
Did you get a submission? Did you get something?
and I have hard copies as well.
Yeah, just give me a second here.
Came in at 3:53 p.m. So, okay. Want me to comment?
Yep.
Darlene did receive your submission there, and I think it was the understanding that since it was past the deadline, that you would be interested in signing up to speak at council meeting when this file goes forward to council, as well as the submission. The submission didn't come into my inbox till almost 4 o'clock. Yeah, but it will be circulated to council for when it goes to that council meeting in the second Monday of May. And I believe you did sign up for that as well, if I'm correct? Okay.
Over the telephone.
Yes.
My, no, what I have in my planning document here, my brief, is directed at the planning council, and it includes specific comments about this proposal, plus some general ones that seem to have arisen as a result of what we're learning, like about mixed use and stuff like that. So quite a few things in there that I would like listened to by the planning board.
It unfortunately was past the deadline for submissions to be received. That's why it didn't.
I would like to do note that 5 minutes of public engagement is, or 10 minutes, 5 of which was a proponent, is insufficient for getting the issues on the table before a planning board recommends to a council approval of a development that has serious issues that need to be addressed. I'm not opposed, by the way, to the development, and I've learned tonight that it's with Canadian Mental Health Association. I'm a retired social worker. I spent my life advocating for services, including wraparound services. And that's what's missing here from a physical perspective. So issues like green space and landscaping and buffering all need to be addressed. And I wouldn't mind my 5 minutes in the sun.
It depends on if there's a consensus of planning board to allow for her to speak, I guess, same as council. Situation.
Is it the will of planning board to allow this lady to address us tonight? If we have a consensus, we can do that.
I think we should, if she's got a presentation and it's important, I think we should.
can take your 5 minutes.
Hear that if.
Thank you.
I also have hard copies of anybody wants.
Thank you, that would be nice. Okay.
I'll try to summarize because
So can you turn the microphone on first, and for the record, state your name and where you're from? Thank you. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Darlene Scott. I live at 25 Gall Road. Thank you for accommodating me at the last minute. I do realize I missed the deadline. I will summarize because I do have copies and it has been circulated. I do believe that this proposal is very large for the site. It seems to have taken over the entirety of the site, and it has made, not that I can see, no accommodations for green space, trees. That is a site that's filled with mature trees and grass. Is there any offsetting, either in this planning or in mixed-use planning? I support mixed use. I think mixed use is an excellent idea. I have a problem with the size. The issue of the people using Gall Road and Campbell Avenue as a bypass has been already addressed, so I won't belabor it. But I think that in a larger way, this needs to be addressed whenever you're looking at high density in addition to mixed use. And those two are very different things, mixed use and high density. Walkability is a huge issue, especially if seniors are going to be involved. Many people use our streets already, which is wonderful for walking, but the safety issues need to be taken into consideration. We do not have sidewalks, and we should have sidewalks that connect from Main Street along Gall, down Campbell, to the lovely new sidewalks on, thank you for those, whoever's responsible, on Queens Road Extension. I do want to talk about compatibility. I don't think 3 stories as the height is compatible with our neighborhood. There's nothing else at 3 stories, except maybe the spire of the church. On the waste management, it's not just location, I think, that needs to be addressed. It's the functionality of the waste management, and I've provided pictures of 2 other multiple use buildings or facilities, whatever you call them, in our neighborhood. On Campbell Avenue, it's a disgrace. On the lower part of Campbell Avenue at the old inclusion site, it's just a bunch of bins stuck on the side of an old driveway. They're overflowing, they're tipped over, they're not on a proper deck. There's no accommodation for blue bags or cardboard collection, which, as we all know, some of us have sheds and porches and barns where we can keep this stuff, but in a multiple use building, that stuff is going to go out by the garbage, and then it's gonna look like the second property that I've provided you of pictures, and that's Lupin Place, which is, lovely new apartments, but, their bins and blue bag area is overflowing, and it's a mess too. They're both actually eyesores. So in summary, I have, recommendations which are specific to the project, and they're on pages 7 and 8. But there needs to be a green space plan. I think the number of units needs to be reviewed. I think that waste management has to be reviewed in perhaps, if the site is ever as large as it is currently proposed, be enlarged with new and different documents. And I think there needs to be a strategy for, of course, sidewalk and lighting. So I think overall, what I would like to leave you with is I think that there needs to be a staged process for proposals on very large, and they're large for our neighborhood, large proposals such as this, because drainage is huge on Gall Street, the problems with the water, and you're going to be capping wells for this project. That needs to be addressed because we already have flooding in the spring, and the water table seems to be very high, even though we're on an elevated area. So there needs to be a staged process, and I think that maybe the neighborhood should be consulted a little bit more often in that process. Just coming up within a couple of weeks, 5 minutes to address it, I don't think that's enough. So that's it. So thank
Appreciate
you
your
very
comments,
much,
thank
Madam
you.
Chairman.
And if you've
Yeah.
got something to leave with us,
I
you
do,
can
I have a copy. Give
pass
to
that
Yvette.
to Yvette, yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will I turn this off?
Yeah, please. Okay, so I'm going to move to number 7.1, and I will read our summary. The proposed application concerns the building of a 3-story mixed-use development featuring 16 one-bed units, 8 two-bed units, and 3,000 square feet of ground floor commercial office space. The building, together with the associated landscaping, refuge area, parking, and drainage works, would be located at the corner of Murphy Lane and Gall Road in Montague. The site is formed of 3 parcels, subject to a separate consolidation proposal at PIDs 199232, 19887, and 199224. The key planning issues associated with this proposal are the higher density residential development and housing need, the official plan policies concerning housing and commercial development, inclusive design, the development bylaw, and the development in the mixed-use zone. The proposal has been found to be consistent with the policy direction for compact growth, housing diversity, and mixed-use development. The project meets all the applicable zoning requirements, including setbacks, parking, servicing, and drainage, with no significant technical concerns identified. Overall, the proposal represents a compatible and well-planned form of development that supports the town's objectives for sustainable growth. The proposal is recommended for approval subject to permit conditions which include 12 months permit expiry, revision service plan, drainage and erosion controls, access entrance permit, landscaping, completion of parcel consolidation, and approved plans. And the Planning and Development Officer therefore recommends the Planning Board recommend to Mayor and Council to approve the proposed 3-story mixed-use development with 24 residential units and 300 square feet of office space at, 3,000 square feet of office space at Murphy Lane and Gall Road, Montague, PIDs 199232, 198887, and 199224, with the following conditions. 1, the permit is valid from 12 months from the date of issue. 2, any proposed changes or revisions to the approved plans must be submitted to the development officer approval. 3, prior to construction, a construction erosion control plan must be submitted to the development officer for approval. The plan shall include all locations of all silt fencing, silt dams, sediment traps, and all other proposed means of erosion control marked on an appropriate plan. All approved silt control shall be implemented at the time of commencement and maintained through the construction period. The applicant shall be responsible for all remedial measures arising from construction impacts, including road cleaning when required. The applicant is required to obtain an entrance, a culvert permit from the Department of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Energy. A master servicing plan shall be provided to Montague Water and Sewer Collection and Treatment Corporation for review and approval prior to the commencement of the development. All soft and hard landscaping shall be completed prior to the first occupation of the building unless otherwise agreed by the development officer. The development shall not be commenced until such time as parcels 199232, 198887, and 199224 have been issued a final consolidation approval. The following constitutes the approved plans. The development permit application received April 10th, 2026. Drawings A000, A100, A101, A102, A104, A200, A201, A300, received April 10th, 2026, and drawing C100, revised, received April 14th, 2026. Can I have a motion to put this on the floor? Moved by Louis, second by Cameron. Okay. Before we start to, before I open up for everybody to discuss, I would like to address one of the issues that Ms. Macbeth brought up, and that is that the one bedroom, and she is correct that we have been looking for multi-units. One of the hats that I wear is as chair of the Montague Housing Authority, and the list is just as long on that for people looking for a one bedroom as it is for people looking for multiple bedrooms. And so just wanted to point out that, I didn't realize till I took on that role that there is such a need for a one bedroom affordable units in the community. So there certainly is a need for that. And there certainly is a need for accessible units in the community, and this will add to that. Yeah, okay. Leah, I wonder if you could address the lady's concern who has talking about the size on the of the property on the site and the setbacks, because I think that we're well within extra room for setbacks. Can I put you on the spot for that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a site in the mixed-use zone, and within the mixed-use zone, you have certain parameters which you have to meet within the bylaw, the performance standards, if you will, and that's where the setbacks are listed. What you'll notice with the mixed-use zone, as with all the other high-density zones, is those setbacks are very minimal, 3.9 feet. The message that comes from that is that the intention is to make the best use of these serviced sites within the urban settlement areas. So when you can develop right up to the edge of the property like that, the message is clear, which is this is a high density site. We're anticipating high density development. It's been planned for high density development. It's gone through those planned processes for that. So it was appropriately zoned mixed use. It's one of the most flexible zones we have. It allows for a wide range of uses to occur on the site as well. So it's not unusual, as we've seen with especially the apartment blocks, is they do make the most of the site. They are developing housing at high densities, in this case, the 24 units. And Chair and Board, may I apologize for the error in the report. The perils of original content, I'm afraid. Occasionally you'd make a spelling error here or there. It certainly was not meant to mislead you, and that's why you're also provided with the drawings, so you'll see exactly what's being proposed. Now, the amount of development in that site, well, that's what we're planning for. That's why that's zoned this way. If the intention was to retain a low-density residential area, I suspect the plan makers at the time would have scripted that as an R1, maybe an R2. But that was never the case. This is a serviced site. This is where we want those higher densities within the town, within the walkable areas. So that's why you see what you've got before you is this office space on the ground floor, the residential units on the ground floor, an absolute ocean of parking associated with that. Yes, and with that, Chair, comes bin and waste collection too. Chair, it was prompted by you quite a while ago to make some inquiries with regarding to bin collections and bin storage and the absolute ocean of bins we have to accommodate as well with recycling and general waste. And we were speaking at those times about maybe like a larger waste receptacle, like a commercial collection. And Island Waste Management, who handle all of this, said that they don't have that provision. I managed to pull up the email in front of me. And while one general waste and one recycling per unit is the general norm, sometimes those can be reduced. Obviously, every site on its merits, and a lot of people want their bin space, if you will. But the balance of that is trying to find space for those on the site. They eat up an incredible amount of space. And that's a difficult thing to balance all these various competing factors in. Parking, the units themselves, delivering high densities of residential within the mixed use zone, making the most sustainable use of that site, finding space for the bins, finding space to maneuver the vehicles. It eats up a large site quite quickly, and that's if we didn't develop those high densities, we would have the opposite effect. We would have the sprawl that people do speak out against, and I completely agree with that. That where there's services, where there's connectivity within the town, we need that. So, Chair, there were loads of good points on here. I don't with the speakers. I don't know if you want me to respond to them all. I certainly can because I've been writing notes furiously. But the points about this being a premature application, this being early, this being a blank slate, couldn't be farther from the truth. Every time you see an application before you, there's a suite of planning conditions in there. These are the conditions of the permit. We know what's going there. You have drawings. Those are the approved drawings. There's very few projects that I come across where a change isn't sought. Can we move parking to that side? Can we move the bins to the west versus the east? A lot of that happens a lot of the time. Now, if you think, Chair, that it's roughly a 36-day turnaround between meetings, if someone said I need to move the bins from over here to over there, and we didn't delegate the ability to do these minor amendments, well, that's 36 days to wait to see if you can move your bins. So that's why we have that condition in there, and you've seen that condition time and time again to allow these minor amendments. Does that allow me to approve another story on that building? Well, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. That's a material change to the application. So we have to bring those back to you. So if this site flips inside, upside down, has underground car parking and goes up to 9 stories, guess what? It'll come back here. It doesn't get done as a desktop amendment. There's controls in place for that. Council approve these proposals because that is the process. Some of these matters are delegated to the development officer. That is the process. That's literally in the development bylaw. That's the process. So yes, when it says council approve, they do, on the basis of some recommendations from staff and recommendations from yourself. So that's the process we have. Now, moving on to our most recent speaker, who made some great points. Open space, landscaping, the compatibility of development. Someone's been reading their development bylaw. That's great to see, engagement like that. And again, this is trying to balance this high density need against maintaining characters of area, delivering desperately needed housing units, the quality of the development, the commercial spaces, economic growth. The official plan speaks to all these things. It speaks of a wide variety of housing types. So that's why we look at these very favorably sometimes, because That's what this plan is asking for. Maybe one day the plan will say no one bedrooms, fine, then that's what the plan says, and then we would recommend a refusal of that because it would be in conflict with the plan. But right now it's asking for a wide variety of housing for all types of tenure. So this is a multi-unit building. I know, Chair, I had a call of fear of this being a group home or, you know, all of these things occurring. There's a lot of horror stories that circulate quite quickly. I have confirmation from the future owners, if you will, that that's not the case. So we have that in writing too, because that's a question I asked before you saw this application, before I started drafting. What are these, what's the nature of these units? What are they for? This is a little bit unusual. We got a lot of accessible units here, and that's great to see because I don't see a lot of that in proposals. So there's a real sort of corner of housing need that's being catered for really, really well here, Chair. And that's why we're advocating this proposal. And again, finding that balance means that maybe you don't get the parkland landscapes that we all envision we'd like from a development. Now, we might get those in a lower density area, but when we're looking at the high density areas, there's a reason they're high density areas. They're not high density parkland areas. They're high density housing. They're high density commercial. They're making the best use of those sites because we don't have a lot of serviced sites available to develop. So when one like this comes along, yes, it is subject to a consolidation application. We have had that condition before you as well, and that hasn't been a problem. That means that this proposal cannot go ahead until that is done. It's a conditional requirement. So once we can get to the point where we go through these processes and we deal with the consolidation processes, then there's a viable development before us. So, Chair, I think I covered most of it. And as for the highway things, yes, very aware. It's smaller roads. It's a smaller road network of its time. Do you get to destroy the road? No. No permit gives you the right to do that. You break the road, you're liable for it. The DTI are involved. There's an entranceway permitting condition here. We are one small step of a much larger consenting process. The DTI will be involved. Provincial building officials will be involved. The town is where this all starts. It's written into the building regulations. It has to start with us. So it's got to start somewhere. And a lot of things have to happen all at once. If we had the luxury of time, a development like this might take years to come through. And I appreciate that that's not the case. So we start a process, we do conditional requirements, other things have to occur around what we're doing today. And clearly they are. Just on the final matter of capacities of water and waste and the utility, we reach out to the utility at the earliest stage and say, is this achievable? Is this serviceable? We do that for all the large developments like this where they're connecting to the town. It's why you see that master utility plan condition, because you don't quite see where the plumbing's going at this stage. Those designs come later. So when they come later, then they come into a master servicing plan. That's given to our utility operators to review so they can say, yes, we can do that connection there, or no, we cannot. Again, it's a conditional requirement. It's not ready at this point, but they too have been involved with this site quite early. So if they are happy, I am happy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions from the board?
I just had one question.
Yep.
With regards to the road, is it included, I didn't see it included in the conditions that the road has to be widened in order for this. Is it, I thought I read it earlier within the development plan, but.
It's not a requirement to widen the road because that will come down to DTI's involvement at the DTI culvert permitting stages. If they deem and it's a necessary requirement to occur, then that's when we're going to have to relook at what's being asked. Does that affect the proposal that you see before you today? Maybe it does. Does it materially affect it that it comes back before planning board? Maybe, but we don't know that yet. That's why some of this work has to come at certain stages. It's common for DTI to be involved post this process. which is why you will see the DTI culvert and accessway and entranceway permit condition on there, because they tend to deal with these things after. It's very, very difficult to get that involvement early. They'll ask, where's your development permit? So hence, we are the start of this journey for a lot of applicants.
Great. All right, Cameron?
According to the diagram, I don't know whether, it says Murphy Lane 9.14 meters wide. Is that the current lane width, or is that the property line width that's shown on the diagram? Because it looks to be considerably wider than what the actual lane is, according to the diagram.
That's the width of the property line. Murphy's Lane is 2.5 meters wide.
2.5,
2.5 meters.
says 9.14.
Do you have that, Lee?
I just measured the asphalt part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Chair. Cameron, I think you're referring to the asphalt versus the right-of-way element. So, yeah, the right-of-ways, a regular right-of-way of nowadays standard is obviously 66 feet. We throw that number around quite a lot, but the asphalt portion of that right-of-way is never 66 feet wide. It's a much smaller portion than that. So, yeah, the lane itself is showing that it's only small. It's the nature of the drawing that you're seeing, I think. I hope that answers your question.
So the physical right-of-way, though, it's not 66, it's not going to be 66-foot right-of-way for that main lane, that lane anyway, from Godfathered in or whatever.
I'm not sure I'd use that term for it. It's the existing lane, and if it's the existing lane width, it is a narrow lane, and if DTI are looking to have that widened, then those talks are clearly already occurring. But if it's deemed necessary at the end of the day. So it may be that the development goes ahead with what we see. If the development needs a wider lane constructed, obviously it's going to be, that cost will be borne elsewhere. And it may be that those amendments are brought back, again, as I said, if it affects the development and the layout.
Eric?
Landscaping, buffer zones and screens are well documented in the bylaws, but they don't really say very much in mixed use, other than in the town of Three Rivers, landscaping is defined as a combination of trees, shrubs, flowers, grasses, horticultural elements, paving, enhanced to develop the property and can be part of the development agreement. I'm a big believer that if we do any development in Three Rivers, we've got to provide some sort of landscaping. You know, if we plant a tree, you know, down the road, it will help enhance what we've done. If we don't do anything, it's hard to get the developer to come back to do that. And I am glad that in the agreement, it does mention, you know, all soft and hard landscaping shall be completed prior to the first occupancy of the building. The other thing that I was glad to hear about were the waste bins that we have in Three Rivers. I think the wheels on them, I think these things move around at night. And some developers actually do a real good job. They build the waste compartments to be 1.8 meters high in areas where they're not legislated to be done, because in the bylaws, they're only for our industrial areas where the garbage can fences have to be 1.8 meters. But we don't really say what it is in the residential, but we give the planning development officer discretion to say this is what fits. So I'm glad that the developer has suggested that the waste bins can be moved to the back of the parking lot. And I think with some screening, and I have seen some of the screening that they use, and it makes it nice and neat and tidy, because there are some streets when you drive by, it's like it's bizarre that, you know, we don't go after the developers to say, like, what are you doing here? Where's your where's your containment? So I think that needs to be, looked at as well. The roadway, Murphy Lane, which I was down it twice and took my measuring tape out and measured the width and had a real good look at it with a neighbor that came across the road to have a chat. It would be my opinion or wish that in the development agreement with this application, that it would be included in it that that laneway be enlarged for two-vehicle traffic, because there's no way you can get vehicles in and out and respect the neighbor right across from the road where this entranceway is going to be with single-lane traffic. It has to be two-lane, and I think that needs to be as part of the condition of this development moving forward. It's our responsibility to make sure that happens, and we don't need to be kicking the ball down the road to somebody else, and it should be two-lane traffic on Murphy's Lane.
Okay, Louis.
So if we were to do that, we would have to wait until Highways gave us the go-ahead that they were going to widen that road before we make a suggestion to council to approve it.
My understanding of the process is that Highways doesn't get involved until there's a development permit, and then they're seeking, the developer is seeking approval. So it's a step along the way. Am I correct? Danielle, Lee?
Chair, you are correct. That is how it works. We sometimes tee up, especially when it comes to site distances for brand new subdivisions, things like that. We will tee up DTI and say, can you go have a look at this? Their permitting side of things doesn't occur at that stage. They come later after those consents are granted. DTI are in this process conditionally, so I would suggest that the appropriate authority to decide if a lane needs widening is them. They are the experts. They are the subject matter experts on that. So I understand, Derek, exactly what you're saying. I too have gone down that site many times, as we do with these, encountering traffic, not encountering traffic. Now, it is a relatively short length to the southern car park. It's not a blind spot. It's not on a bend. It's very visible and open, and you've got clear sight lines all the way down to see approaching traffic and whatnot. So from a safety perspective, on an initial run through, I would have no concerns over these arrangements. DTI may feel differently at the time that DTI get involved with it. Now, if we were to say, well, let's not make a decision today, then we start that process of delay. What if, and it's a what if, because we don't know what DTI will say when they start to look at this in detail.
Excuse me a second.
Sorry, Chair.
Could we leave the conversation till later, please? So it's not distracting for the board? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sure we've all got our opinion on the nature of traffic. We all drive cars. We all have a feel for how the roads work. But when it comes to does it need it or doesn't it, I will always favor the subject matter expert. In this case, it's DTI. They will advise. So if we keep processing this application now and they say, actually, you know what, we've looked at it, we've looked at the tenure, we've looked at the car parking, we've looked at who's going in here, we don't have an issue with this, they may say, and we've not made a decision on that, then we've delayed this proposal from coming forward, from going to council chair. So they may say that there is changes required, but that doesn't preclude making a decision on what you see before you tonight, because it is a conditional requirement. They're going to get involved. They have no choice. The applicant has to go to them to get permission to access those roads with the development as we see it tonight. If they say no, this permit does not override that no. That this doesn't take the place of their authority over who gets to access their roads. It's as simple as that. So they also don't like to get involved until later. Again, it's a juggling, it's a balance, and there's a control in there through the condition, And if the applicant has to come back to us, then they will have to come back to us. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts to that. If DTI say no, it's a no. But that's a discussion for the applicant to now have with DTI. We're not that authority to issue the culvert permits, the accessway permits, the entrance permit, however you want to describe them, the consent to access the public road. It's firmly under their authority.
Does that satisfy your?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. We can't delay all the developments until we get everything fixed up the way we think it should be, or we'd never get anything done. So I appreciate the explanation, Lee. Thanks.
Just a couple questions, because I'm not a subject matter expert on all this, so I just want to ask a few questions you've probably been asked before, and just to clarify some things. So like, we are approving we're recommending the approval of development permit to council, and then like, we have certain conditions. Development permit shall not commence until the lots are consolidated. So we don't, and then it's 12 months, so we don't actually issue the development permit. It could be 3 or 4 months down the road before he actually gets issued, or they actually get issued the development permit. Because the consolidation, they have to get their, like the culvert one from the Department of Transportation Infrastructure. And then like another one, what is our checks and balances for the hard landscape? Like, they are gonna reach back out to us and say, hey, we're now at this point, and because we don't actually issue an occupancy permit, right? So what is our check and balance to enforce that part of it, I guess, just from my understanding?
Thank you, Chair. Again, good questions tonight. So the permit isn't live until those conditions are discharged. They have to do these things. If you find yourself with an apartment building with none of the conditions discharged, that apartment building does not have a permit, period. It becomes an enforcement matter. The implementation of matters such as the hard and soft landscaping, we as a planning team are out and about all the time checking up on development. We go to sites before we issue permits for them. We go to sites after we issue, and we see what's happening. We make sure that what's been proposed is what's being built. It's why we list the drawings, because that's what you're getting a permit for. And there's a compliance element to that. So we don't knock on doors. We work subtly in the shadows, if you will. We check up on big sites, especially high-profile sites. And this would be a high-profile site. It's a significant development. Apartments always are. They attract a lot of interest. And as we know from previous apartments, sometimes they go wrong. But it's those compliance checks and those enforcement processes that deal with that. You'll recall stop notices being issued on an apartment that was too high. That is part of that process. That's that check and balance, I think, that you're looking for. And it's exercised.
Thank you.
Can I have a clarification on what stage the lot consolidation is up, since that was part of Cody's question? Where that's up to?
We have that application in, and it will be done at some point when we can fit it in. But it's probably going to be prior to council's meeting. But it's just a matter of it being done shortly, Chair. It's one of many applications we've got right now.
Okay, Cody, you satisfied with your? Okay, do you have anything else about this to discuss before we vote? Nope. Okay, Cameron? Nope. Derek? Louis? Okay. Okay. So, you have the motion before you. All in favor of moving this ahead to council? Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. Before we adjourn the meeting, I'd like to just address one of the other things that was brought up, and that was the concern about the garbage and some of the state of the garbage bins around buildings. And I will say that I think if we see that, it's on each of us to call and report that and have the bylaw officer go out. I was involved in something recently where somebody was, made a complaint, and then you know, they called me about it and said, hey, and I said, no, like your garbage isn't where it's supposed to be and something needs to be done. And that particular site has been cleaned up. But I think it's on all of us as citizens to keep an eye on our town. And if we have a concern, to bring it forward and bring it for the bylaw officer. And it's, sorry? Call the office here, yes, call the office here and bring it to the bylaw office, because there's no excuse for people not being able to, you know, sort their garbage and deal with their garbage. We're all intelligent people here and we can figure out the system. And so if there's a problem, it needs to be, it should be addressed. Anyway, okay, motion for adjournment, please. Cameron, and a second from Cody, and all in favor. Thank you very much. Appreciate your participation.